Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. My name is Joshua, and I'm going to be your presenter today. It's noon Eastern Time on Friday. We're here to talk about basically the very first topic in our scheduler module. Before we go ahead and do that, setting up scheduler, let's talk about a few things. If you've got a single monitor, click the little red arrow next to your webinar control panel there. That minimizes it. It gets it out of the way. Or if you've got a dual monitor setup, go ahead and drag that off to your second desktop. If you have questions for me, please type those into the questions portion of the webinar control panel. We do simply ask that you keep the questions on topic, meaning about basically our topic at hand, scheduler setup basically, and we're really not going to get into much detail on that per se. Again, I'm not because I don't want to answer the questions for you. It's because I'm simply not either equipped either in my data or perhaps in my thinking to answer some of those. I may even ask you to, contact support with regards to a specific question if it's detailed and specific to your data. Again, simply because I need more information. The webinar itself doesn't offer us that flexibility. Our topic is taken directly from our Scheduler 101 or S101 workbook, pages 2 through 5. If you have that, that's what I'm using as the guide for the webinar event today. If you don't have those and you'd like to look at that, please, you can purchase the workbooks from our website, churchwindows.com, and from our workbook page right here. If we go up to beginning, we've got training workbooks right here. You can go right online. All of the workbooks and their topics are all right here. They can be downloaded, purchased right online from our store, and you can print them directly from the PDF file. Also, today's event is being recorded. The video of it will be here under our support center at some point here in the next few days or so, the very latest next week. All kinds of useful information here already. Just wanting you to bring it to your attention. We're continually adding to this support center all the time. All right. Basically, Scheduler is a module of Church Windows that allows you to schedule meetings and events and worship services and groups and classes meetings and things like that, with details of things like date and time and location, equipment, and people. It does sync over to accounting, or to membership, and allows us to tie that over to our people in membership in order to be able to say that these folks that are in our membership database are available to assign to our events, whatever they may be, in the scheduler module. Okay? They can be assigned to not only to the events themselves, but to specifically a section in most cases called duties. There's conflict checking in Scheduler. So if you want to have a piece of equipment and you want the system to verify that piece of equipment is is not being assigned or used or associated with two different events at the same time, this is true for not only equipment but for locations too. Is that basically you can run a conflict report that will say, hey, we've got a conflict for either this piece of equipment or the locations, even people, if I'm not mistaken. Okay? Of course, our reports and our calendar can be exported in a variety of options, file formats, most notably, though, the HTML file option, so you can post the church's scheduler information on, say, the church's website if you wish. Okay, it can be exported in a VCal format also that can be imported into Outlook or Palm Desktop or any other calendaring program. Okay, so the scheduler, while not always used or purchased by a lot of churches, it does do a lot, and it is very helpful. The scheduler module doesn't sync over to necessarily directly into programs like Google Calendar or something, but any online applications or outside, it is exclusively within Church Windows. But if any other application or calendaring software outside of Church Windows does permit the import of a VCal file, definitely the scheduler information can be exported to that. Okay. So at the bottom of our page 2 of our workbook here, to utilize the features in the scheduler module, you first have to enter information about the locations and equipment and people, that are to be scheduled with these events. You can put them into certain categories, and then you can tie pieces of equipment and locations and people to these events. However, they are all optional. Okay, you can just set up the events without setting up locations and equipment and people if you wish. Okay, so here we've got on our basic scheduler screen a couple things scheduled in adult Sunday school, Sunday and morning worship, or Wednesday evening youth basketball. But when the setup function starts, it always goes up here in the upper left. Let me get out my highlighter here. And up here in the upper left corner, right between our reports and conflict colors, we've got our setup option. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my yellow arrow that I drew there with regards to that. And so let me get back to my regular drawing tool, get rid of that arrow, and when we click up Setup, it does bring in all of the options that can be set up. Now, this is not setting up events. This is events are different. Events, we're not going to cover that today, but basically this is just setting up things that can be associated with events. So right here, we can choose people or locations or equipment, duties, categories, okay? Shaded areas, okay? Basically, per the book, people are people that are brought over from our members or visitors database that can be associated for specific duties or particular events or particular locations, and you can have up to a maximum of 1,000 people from your membership database to be marked as available to associate with particular events. So if we click on that, now we're going to actually come back to that. Locations, if we click on locations, that's next. Again, when you open locations in your particular scheduler, if it's never been set up, this list is going to be blank. And you simply click Add at the bottom left. And when you click on Add, it enters a new location in our locations list and allows us to enter a new name here. And once the location is set up, you can tie it to specific categories, to certain equipment or contacts. Okay? And this is virtually true about anything. They all work very much the same. Just some things may have more flexibility and more options than others. Okay? Simply just based on their not needing to have something necessarily associated with it. Okay? We're going to get rid of that one. We're not going to set one up. But then you would simply click Save and Close once it's added to your list. If we go back up to Setup and choose, say, Equipment, again, when this is set up or you set it up for the very first time, you're coming in here, this list on the left-hand side, let me get my highlighter again, right here, this is blank. These are not defined by Church Windows. We don't know what the equipment the church has, therefore we don't enter anything. This is a blank list. So notice we've got basketballs or DVD or microphone or projectors or VCRs or DVD players, what have you. It doesn't, anything that you want to track in association with an event with regards to equipment, you can add it here. Okay, by simply again clicking Add in the bottom left, entering the new name here under Name, and any notations, notes about it. And again, notice you can tie equipment to specific locations if you wish. Okay? We're going to click Cancel and Close on that. If we go back up to Setup, and now we go to Duties, notice here we've got, again, a similar list. These are just some common things that But again, duties can be representing anything that represents a task or a job or a function that needs to get completed for a particular event. So notice here we've got acolytes or building monitor, greeters, hosts, money counters, noodle makers, ushers. The sky's the limit. Whatever you need to have done. Custodial responsibilities. You can name it. Again, all done very much similarly. Clicking add at the bottom left. You can also, of course, edit or delete these and then entering the name. It's not terribly complicated. But notice now in this case, there aren't any other tabs other than general here because duties can only be associated with events. Okay? The duties aren't associated necessarily with particular equipment or locations per se. It's just something that needs to occur in association with an event. So we don't have other tabs for that. Okay? Categories are simply groupings of events. So here we've got like building rentals or adult education or committee meetings or worship services. Okay? Again, you don't have to use categories, but categories are ways of being able to assign particular things to a particular category. And finally, again, clicking add in the bottom left to add more, is our shaded areas. And right here, shaded areas are, as we look at our screen behind us, let me grab my highlighter again, steer some focus. Right here, our lunch break is identified when the office is closed in green, or we've got a coffee break. Basically something that isn't necessarily identified and set up as an event. It's simply on our schedule to notify folks of something that's occurring. Okay? Blocks of time scheduled on the grid, and they'll show up with a color, but they're not events. Okay? Very important thing to understand or distinguish. Okay? Again, we're not going to really go into any detail setting this up, folks. There are going to be other webinars that are going to go into more detail of setting up these particular portions of it. We're just giving you kind of a sneak peek in terms of what is required to get the scheduler module set up. Okay? However, the webinar does discuss or does say that we are going to be talking about linking scheduler to our membership module. And there are a couple different ways that we can do that. Okay? So we can identify people to be used in scheduler from the scheduler module. This is generally the quickest and fastest place to do it. So if we click on setup, and again I said we would come back to people. We're going to click on people, and notice here down the left hand side, every person that's listed in our members and visitors database is listed here. Okay? So if we continue, it's listed alphabetically by last name. So if we click the scroll down here, we're going to see everybody A to Z that's in membership. Again, it doesn't matter whether they're in members or visitors, they're in this list. Once you have members and visitors entered, this list will be here. But simply, you just go down the list and put a check mark in the names of those folks that you want to have available to assign to particular events or duties in Scheduler. It's literally that simple. And when you're done, you would click Save and Close. You can check everybody using the Check All or the Uncheck All. You can print a report of those folks who are there and available and associated with events, that are in Scheduler to associate. When you're done, you would simply click Save and Close. The other way to be able to assign people is from membership. So if we go into membership and say members, you can highlight a particular person. And, let me just try going to the back end of my database. So here we've got Ron Turner. Notice here in the upper right-hand corner, we've got this checkbox labeled Show and Schedule. So in order to have somebody appear in the Scheduler module on my reports or to associate, I have to put a check mark in that Show and Schedule box. And then click Save. Okay? So I can do it from either one of those two places, either from members or visitors on an individual person basis, or I can do it from the people section of my scheduler module where I can see everybody simultaneously. Nothing too terribly difficult or complicated about it, folks. So yeah, on page 4 to 5 of our workbook, it does talk about assigning it to either from the scheduler module as we originally indicated, or in scheduler, which is frankly the fastest place to do it, or from the individual people. If you go, oh, well, I've got a list of names, and you're not sure, you've got, 4 John Smiths in your database, it might be easier just to go in and do find here. But don't forget that when we were in the scheduler module, let's go back over there, that when we go up to our setup and our people, that as we click on somebody's name here, we do see their name and address and phone number to the right side. So if you have that information, again, you've got 2 or more people in the same database with the same information but at different addresses, that information is available here to use or to access in order for us to help avoid making mistakes and perhaps assigning or checking the wrong person or not the right person, as the case may be. Okay? So again, we're really not going to go in, once you've done it, again, you're going to want to click Save and Close on all these. Again, you can come in and remove people the same way. But that's really it, folks. But again, just by way of example, if I go into my Sunday AM worship, we've got a couple minutes left here. If I go into my Sunday AM worship, I've got it set up as a recurring event. If, say, I wanted to associate some of these things with this, I would say, okay, I want to open well, we're gonna cancel out of that. So we're going to go to next Sunday, the 13th. So if I go Sunday AM worship and I go open this event only, notice here I've got a variety of tabs across the bottom: locations, contacts, equipment, categories, notes, duties. I can then go into each one of these, or into my duties, and say, okay, add a duty. And here I can say, okay, I've got to have an acolyte. Okay, and then I can go down and I can choose from my people that are assigned and assign them to those of that event. Okay. And then I've got my names. And I can go into my, other duties and add, further duties. Okay. Add a duty brings up the next one. I can choose usher, and then I can associate ushers with that. So you see, it's not terribly difficult, but the data does have to be set up to support it. Okay? So that's what I mean. That's what we're talking about in terms of how the setup becomes vitally important in terms of associating these events, associating these. Oh yeah, my equipment, change events equipment. So I can go, oh yeah, I need to have a microphone for the senior pastor. Click OK, got a microphone. I can enter notes about this. So there's all kinds of flexibility here. Okay? So just with a brief kind of quick overview, I can associate contacts with an event or equipment, and it shows me even there on the tabs here how much I've got of each associated. Okay? So we've got about another minute here, folks. Let me see if there's any questions here. I'm done with what I'm talking about here. Then I would click Save, of course, when I'm done, so that's associated with that. But let me see what we got here for questions. No, nothing coming in. So if you've got any questions, please type those in to me. Again, folks, we're not going to go into any further detail than that. Again, please look for other future scheduler of webinars in future that will go into more detail. But again, that's just kind of a quick introduction to the setup of the scheduler module. And again, we will have other events later on that covers more detail than what I've covered today on that. All right, well, I don't see anything coming in. Let me give folks just a few seconds here to maybe type something in if there's any questions on that. Again, please keep in mind this event will be being recorded, and the video of it will be available on our support center here soon. Paul is asking, confirming that Google Contacts will not sync. Yeah, there's no direct syncing option, Paula, directly between Church Windows Scheduler and any other external calendaring program. We do really, the only thing you really have here would be to go up to your reports and maybe choose your calendar, and then from here you can, from the actual preview of the report itself, you can use the export function here under export and export it, as PDF file, or I think there is an option up here in the upper left under file, export to VCal right here. So yeah, there's nothing that directly syncs between Church Windows and any other program. Good question. Yeah, Church Windows definitely doesn't import data. The data could only be exported from Church Windows to any other calendaring program. Yeah, we like to make sure our database is protected. When you allow the import of data from other locations, it really puts the integrity of the Church Windows data at risk, and we're really protective of that, admittedly. All right, well, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, folks. I'll go ahead and end the webinar event for everyone. Thank you so much for attending. We hope it's been helpful, or at least insightful in some way. And we look forward to seeing you at another Church Windows webinar event in future. All right. Thanks all so much. Bye-bye.